Hi, I'm Steve. You can call me Steve. I'm not sure about these engaging, personable openings. Sometimes I think I should just dispense with them entirely, but other times I think I should put off making a decision about that. I tried to dump all the responsibility on you and ran a Twitter poll on whether you liked these or just skipped them. The results were exactly 50-50. Thanks a lot, that wasn't helpful at all. Anyway, I'm a trombone player. I've been playing since I was 13, with a lengthy gap when I was busy not getting a PhD. The trombone is a wind instrument, although not a woodwind because it's made of metal. Of course, nowadays most actual woodwinds are made of plastic, but that's beside the point. This is a roundabout way of introducing the topic of sound waves. Sound waves, plural, are the method by which sounds propagate, so that you can hear them far away from the place where they were created. Soundwave, singular, is a giant alien robot that turns into a cassette player and serves as Megatron's communications officer and spy master. We live in an ocean of air. Air molecules are constantly bouncing off every part of you, including your eardrums. That's how hearing works. Changes in the pattern of how molecules are colliding with your inner ear are perceived in the brain as sound. Those patterns are what we call waves. A wave is just a repeated motion that goes in cycles. You're probably familiar with waves at the beach. Ignore the part where they curl over and hit the sand. That's more complicated than we need to think about right now. Instead, consider further out, where the waves are simpler to understand but less fun to surf on. If you anchor a boat and just watch what the water does, you'll see it rise and fall in a regular motion. If you watch carefully, you'll see that the high part of the cycle, or the peak, will move towards the shore, followed by the low part of the cycle, or trough, followed by another peak, followed by another trough, and so on. The water molecules themselves aren't moving forward, just up and down. It's the wave itself traveling through them that moves. If you make a graph of the height of the water at that point where your boat is over time, you'll see a very distinct wave shape. This is a shape that turns up a lot in science and engineering, and it doesn't have to be a graph of height. In sound waves, it's air density over time. When something makes a noise, it momentarily compresses the air around it, making it denser. Then that air expands again and spreads itself out and keeps on going, becoming less dense than it started. This repeated compression and rarefaction travels through the air ocean the same way the repeated up and down motion travels through the water ocean. And you can draw one of those wavy graphs to describe it. The peaks and troughs on this graph represent the point of greatest and least air density. The different properties of the wave influence the different properties of the sound. The greater the compression and stretching, the louder the sound. The closer the peaks are together, the higher the pitch or frequency. Frequency is a measure of how frequently those peaks are passing a given point. The closer together they are, the more often they go by. Frequency is also related to wavelength, which is the distance between those peaks. For sounds in the range that a human can hear, a high-frequency sound might have a wavelength this long, whereas a really deep one might be a few meters long. Allow me to demonstrate. This is my trombone. It doesn't have a name. Some musicians name their instruments, I name my car instead. Like most wind instruments, it's a long tube. It's been coiled up a bit to make it easier to play, but that doesn't affect anything about the sound waves. You can set up standing waves inside long tubes. These are waves that don't travel anywhere, although they do cause the mobile types of waves we've been talking about when they come out the end of the tube, because otherwise nobody would be able to hear the instrument. The standing wave has a wavelength that matches the length of the tube, or an exact fraction of the length of the tube. If you want to play different pitches, you have to change the length of the tube. The slide here has room for 7 distinct notes, but the horn can play more than those 7 notes. How did I do that? The phenomenon of matching a sound wave to the length of the tube is called resonance. And that term applies to a lot more things than just sound waves and tubes. Things that are resonating or vibrating at their resonant frequencies. When I blow into the horn, I'm not just blowing air into it, I'm buzzing my lips like this. That makes the column of air inside the tube resonate. The fundamental resonant frequency has a wavelength exactly half the length of the tube, so it fits one of the loops of that squiggle. You can also get the tube to resonate at a wavelength that fits exactly 2 or 3 loops into the tube. Because these higher resonant frequencies have shorter wavelengths, they have higher pitches. The lowest note I just played isn't the trombone's fundamental resonant frequency. It's just the lowest one that's easy to play. There's at least one below it, but it takes a bit of effort to get out. It made my eyes vibrate. The higher notes are called overtone frequencies, and I can make the horn resonate at those pitches by buzzing my lips at higher frequencies. In theory, there's no upper limit to how high you can go, but there's a practical limit to how tightly you can squeeze your face. If you want to go high and your lips aren't up to it, the easiest thing to do is to get a smaller horn. The previous horn was called a tenor trombone, and it's the standard model you learn in high school band. This guy is called an alto trombone, and I didn't know it existed until I found this one. There's also a soprano, which is basically a trombone-shaped trumpet. This alto has a shorter tube, because it actually mostly fits in the frame. And it means it resonates at shorter wavelengths and plays at higher pitches. By changing the length of the slide and switching between overtones, you can play every note in the scale on the trombone. And that's where music happens. That's sound waves. They're the means by which noise propagates across air so you can hear things at a distance, and also a very sketchy excuse to show off my trombone in a video. Thanks for watching. I've been Steve.